Okay, my name is Philippa Hellaine. I'm from Cleanaway. I'm the National Manager and my title is Local Government Strategy and Growth. It's very long-winded, but essentially I do a lot of government engagement and also work very closely with our sustainability team. So I'm here to speak to you about the mandate specifically, but just for those that don't know, maybe a little bit about Cleanaway. We're a national organisation, Australia's largest waste and resource recovery organisation. So we work all over Australia. We have a very big footprint in New South Wales. We cover all waste streams, and food waste, which I'll cover off today, is one of our biggest areas of focus, biggest area of service. So we service customers doing food waste and organics. We work with both councils, we work with commercial clients like yourselves, and we also do a lot of work with the community in terms of education. So just broadly, that's who we are. So yes, there's a lot of work and effort that's gone into organics and what is termed FOGO. So all FOGO stands for those of you that don't know is food organics, garden organics, and FOGO applies to both residents and commercial businesses. So we'll get into a little bit about what it is. So basically the New South Wales government, the EPA, have mandated starting from this July, so the 1st of July, they've mandated that all businesses, institutions, large supermarkets, hotel groups like yourself, schools, etc. So large organisations that have food waste within their remit need to participate in this. So I'll get into the detail of it, but essentially it's part of a bigger strategy that the government is implementing. It's the Waste and Sustainable Materials Strategy. That's the New South Wales strategy that ladders back up to the national strategy. And that's all around waste reduction. It's all around reducing constraints on landfill that we have and transitioning the New South Wales, the Sydney, the Australian economy from a linear economy to a circular economy. So broadly, that's the context and that's the objective. Move to the next slide, please. So you can see, in New South Wales, we have this mandate coming in July. Victoria is also mandated. The other states also have a very close focus on organics, but really New South Wales and Victoria are leading the way because we've been mandated with this legislation. So the strategy, it's pretty clear what the strategy aims to do. It's all around keeping materials in use for longer, really reducing waste and getting that food waste out of landfill, so removing it. So we know that the largest food waste currently makes up, I think it's around 42% of what goes into the general waste composition. So the idea is to get that out to reduce our waste. So that's the goal. And you can see that really when we're talking about organics and we're talking about food waste, the targets that focus on that specifically is the target is to get a 50% reduction in organic waste out of landfill by 2030. Next slide. So what does this actually mean and how will it be implemented? So the whole idea is, as of July this year, big organisations like the ones I just mentioned a moment ago need to implement mandatory FOGO or organic services. So that means that businesses need to remove the food and organic waste out of the general waste. So that's food waste separation and basically implement a food organics waste stream. There's reporting requirements. The compliance is around the data and the detail that I'll go through in a moment. But yes, it's all basically an increased focus on removing that food and organic waste from landfill. There's a staged approach. So as I mentioned, starts 1st of July. So that's 30 or 40 days away. And that'll start for organisations like yours. And it will start it applies to a certain volume of waste. And then there'll be a transitionary period. So in 2028, the next phase or the next tranche of organisations with a different weight volume will be under the mandate. So in 2 years' time, and then there'll be another tranched approach. So leading up to 2030. So first is 2026, then 2028, another load of businesses and organisations will come on board. And then by 2030, there'll be another lot as well. So a lot of you are familiar with what's happening in the residential. So councils are implementing FOGO all around New South Wales. They're doing the same. And councils are slowly getting on board with that. So it's we're all trying to do similar things. Next slide. So I just mentioned the rollout timeline, but to give you a little bit more information and specifics on what does it actually mean when the mandate starts in July. So it applies specifically. So this is weekly general waste capacity that we're talking about. So if you have close to 4,000 litres of general waste weekly for your bin, so that's about 16 240 litre bins. If you have that quantity of waste, which presumably most of you do, you need to comply. So, and what does comply mean? That means you need to introduce the waste service. So presumably most of you have that service in place, but it is about having a specific food organics service so that we can separate the waste streams and we can recycle that food waste. It comes out of the general waste bin. So you can see then 2026, the implementation, 2028, as I mentioned, sites that have a reduced capacity of close to 2,000 litres, and then 2030, there's another lot. So what does it mean? Just as I mentioned, it means that you're required to separate that food waste from the general waste and ensure it has a specific organics service. You need to work with a reputable supplier, and all that means is that we can provide data and reporting to you. And really some of the benefits of doing this is that we can provide data. So Cleanaway, amongst other people in the industry, but I think we lead the way on this, we can provide data around, so if you take that food waste out of that general waste bin, we can provide data on what that means, as in we can provide volume data and weight data on that organics waste. And then you can also get other information linked to that, which provides information on the diversion capacity that you have over the course of, say, an annual period. There are penalties for non-compliance. The New South Wales EPA take an education approach. So they're really trying to educate, as are most of the sector, trying to provide information around what it means, what is required. There are penalties and fines that they have said that they would. I think what they're going to do is they're going to do random audits, but they do take an education approach. And really the whole goal here is to get businesses on board, to get the services happening with different organisations to drive that food waste out of the general. Do you want to next slide? So we have, I think, some of the things to consider and some of the things to think about. I'm making an assumption that most of you have implemented this, but maybe some of you haven't. But whether you have or you haven't, we go to a lot of customers regularly, and even the ones that have implemented an organic service, these are the things that come up time and time again. It's like constant work that needs to be done on, do you have the right bins? We often go into a kitchen, for example, and the bins aren't the correct bins. They're not in the right place. They're not in the place that makes it easy for the existing process. So the bins have to be really thought out where they're placed. And then, of course, it's not just where it's placed, it's do we know what sort of bin it is, as in, can we identify it as an organics waste bin as opposed to a green waste bin? Because one of the biggest challenges we have is around source separation and that contamination. So we find a whole lot of things that come through in our food waste that comes into our processing facility, which is in Eastern Creek. Maybe you would believe, because you might have seen some of it, but some of the things that come into the facility through that food waste is crazy. But that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make the cleanest stream of food waste as possible. So bin location, bin signage, all those things are actually really important to ensure that it works for the processors within, say, the kitchen, and that people understand how to use those. Then there's training and compliance. We do a whole lot of waste audits, so we can work with your organisations, go in and do a waste audit, which basically gives you an audit of what the volume of your waste is, and then we can start to break it down and in terms of what percentage of waste do you have across each of the different streams. So you might have general waste, you might have commingle waste, paper and cardboard, you might have glass, and then the organics. So we can break it all down and give you an idea of what those volumes are. And then we can work with you on how to improve or reduce the contamination and improve that source separation through things like bin placement, signage, etc. Next slide. We have a team, as I mentioned, we have about 20 people in New South Wales that focus on both councils and commercial clients, and then community and schools education. But we come in and work with organisations such as yours to do training, to do those audits, as I mentioned, and we can perform a whole lot of different tasks for organisations like yours if needed. But the whole intention of all of that really is to drive that reduced contamination, improve that source separation so that people understand really what goes in what bin. And it sounds incredibly simple, but it's actually not. I know that a lot of our work is around things like signage, and I know that there's a lot of, say we work with cleaners, for example, a lot of our work is working directly with cleaning staff because they often don't speak English. So it's about working and getting specific signage that's made up specifically for that audience, or working out where we can do specific signage on bins that might be in a really hard area, or flyers and resources, things like that. These are just some examples of signage and bins, as I mentioned, but just to really point it out, because this is probably one of the key things. If you get it right, it will really help you and the processes, and it will reduce that contamination, which ultimately helps you because general waste costs are going up. So over time, they're only going to increase. So these practices within your organisation and within those teams in the kitchen, they'll all help. So coloured coded bins, they help to improve that source separation, as I mentioned. It maximises the ability for people to know what goes where. And it's also making sure, we often go into these places in kitchens or hallways or whatever, and you have the wrong type of bin. And so someone will put in general waste into a green waste receptacle if they don't have the right signage or the right bin lid colour. So all those sorts of things really help. There's actually some really cool bin rooms in Sydney and some of the organisations that we work with, and they've taken this concept of a red bin with a red lid and then painting that whole area where all the red bins are red on the floor to make it crystal clear to staff that this is the red bin area. And then they do it for the yellow bin area, and then they do it for the blue bin area. And it sounds simple, but they're the things that really help. And when we've done that with customers, where they've really put an effort into the bin room and make sure that the signage is clear, it is colour coded with the right bins, it actually makes a difference. And often for those customers, the diversion and the reduced waste and the improved source separation it's better. We do I've touched on a lot of the things we do, but we have access to, and any of you that do work with us would hopefully have used this, but we have an online tool called Greenius. You could all go onto it right now, whether you're a customer of ours or not, and have a look at it. We have it online. You can have a play around with it. It's called Greenius. It's just an online digital platform, but we have a module for every waste stream. So we have one for organics, for general waste, commingle, paper and cardboard, etc. And all that does is it just goes through and provides a bit of a quiz around, can you put this in this bin? Because there are so many questions I think people have around coffee cups. I get asked a lot, is a coffee cup, surely it's recycled, but it's actually not. So there's lots of questions that we get. Tea bags, they shouldn't be going in compost, for example. So it's trying to work through some of those questions that we get, and we do that through a quiz to make it a bit fun. But they're the things that we have available. So like I said, you can go and have a look, but we could also tailor those to your organisation if that was important for you. We've got a lot of resources and tools. We've actually got a pamphlet which we've got to print out for all of you so you can have a read of it. So it's just got information on the mandate. It's got information on what are the changes, some of those data points that I mentioned. So the volume of weight and the literage and the timing and the phased approach. It's got details of a case study. We've also got case studies and things like that. So we've got a whole lot of resources. If you were interested or want some more information, we can certainly provide that for you. And something else I thought you might be interested in. So I've actually just come back we have a facility in Western Sydney. So that's where so maybe you have questions around where does the organic food waste go and actually what happens to it. So In Metro Sydney, for example, any food waste from both councils and from commercial clients like yourselves, that goes back to our facility in Eastern Creek. That facility is basically takes in all the food waste, also takes garden waste as well. It gets processed, goes through a number of processes to decontaminate. So to take out the forks, the garbage bins, the batteries, whatever we get in the food waste. So there's a number of processes to remove that contamination. And some of that is manual. So there are people, we have, it's definitely 2, I think it might be 3 manual sorting lines at our Eastern Creek facility, where you have 4 people that stand opposite on a conveyor belt, taking out different types of metals, batteries, etc. throughout the process. And then it goes through, we have this huge facility that basically has the food waste in rows, and it gets gradually turned through the rows. And that, I think that whole process takes about 3 weeks in the big facility. Then it goes to a refinery, which is another building outside, and it sits there for maturation, and it's got to go through that maturation process where it heats up and it gets up to 65 degrees. So you can see all the, what do you call it? Not smoke, like steam. That's it, for steam. All the steam coming off as it's going through that process. And then you see the big piles. So if you're ever interested, there's opportunities to come out and visit the site, because it's pretty impressive in a metro area that we're getting all this food waste, and we're transferring that from food waste into an amazing compost product. And we sell that back to councils and we sell that back to farmers. So that's where it's going. Look, that's all hopefully I've given you a high level overview. It's pretty brief, I know, but I'm happy to answer any questions. But this is really important. It's really important for you guys, because you guys are actually at the coalface of where a lot of the food waste is being generated and can be reduced. So there's a lot of opportunity with organisations like yours to do this really well. And there are so many benefits to diverting the food out of the general waste stream. And I think in time we'll all see the benefits of it. And yes, it's a bit of a behaviour change process to go through in terms of setup in your systems, then actually implementing the services. But we will all see the benefits in time. So anyway, thank you.